Life after The Exorcist. Linda Blair was never the same. Linda Blair became the scariest kid in the world in 1973 when The Exorcist came out in theaters. The controversial but hugely successful film propelled Blair to massive fame when she was only 14 years old. Such fame takes its toll on a child, especially one who became famous from a movie that was notoriously hard to make. The conditions on the set left her picking up the pieces, in chronic pain, while receiving death threats and being typecast in what could have been a promising career. No wonder she went through a rebellious phase, filled with drugs, arrests, and Rick James. She started out as a J.C. Penney girl. It's been 5 decades, and The Exorcist is still the movie Linda Blair is known for. But playing a little possessed child was by far not the end of the actress's story. Sure, she never reached the same heights of fame again, but that doesn't mean she wasn't famous in her own right. Blair's life may have gone off-path in her younger years, but she managed to make it out nearly unscathed. Linda Denise Blair was born on January 22, 1959 in St. Louis, and her career began at the age of 5 when she started modeling for Sears, J.C. Penney's, and Macy's. The one out of 600. Blair was also in TV commercials for Ivory Soap, Welch's Grape Jelly, and Carefree Gum. By 9, she was acting in soap operas and landing some minor film roles. At 13, she was offered the role that would change her life forever. Blair was one of 600 children who auditioned for the role of Regan in The Exorcist. Other names on the list were Jamie Lee Curtis and Denise Nickerson. She played Violet Beauregard in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The thing is, Blair wasn't so gung-ho about the part in the horror film. She wanted out. Having been in the industry for nearly a decade by then, she was growing disillusioned with life in front of the camera. She was more interested in animals, especially horses. Modeling was pretty difficult back then, she explained. I didn't find the business something that I had an interest in. I wanted to be a veterinarian. She was even willing to give up acting for horseback riding. When I was 13, I basically asked my mother if it was possible for this to end, that I'd had enough of it, and I truly had had enough. She was the perfect fit. Then The Exorcist happened. The 13-year-old Linda heard about the film adaptation of The Exorcist and said, "Why not? Maybe this would be the last one," she thought. Blair's mom, Eleanor, took her to meet William Friedkin, the director, at audition. Friedkin later revealed that after seeing thousands of applicants, all trying out for the same part, he almost gave up on finding the perfect actress for the role of Regan. Then he met Blair, and after her audition, he was convinced she was the perfect fit. Nightmares, burns, and chronic pain. Friedkin was, fittingly, a filmmaker possessed. After his most recent film, The French Connection, he developed a reputation of pushing his cast and crew past their limits. Young Linda Blair was forced to wear makeup so scathing that it burned her skin. She was also strapped into a harness, which resulted in lifelong spinal injuries. The truth is, the nightmare-inducing movie created very real nightmares for Blair for years to come. To make it worse, the movie, in more ways than one, derailed a promising career in film. She was left out of the reboot. She was typecast as the eternal victim. You would think that the Exorcist franchise might owe one to Linda Blair. The latest Exorcist reboot didn't even entertain the idea of having Blair in the film. The 60-something Blair made her thoughts known on social media. She tweeted that there had not been any discussions about me participating or reprising my role. Back in 1972, Friedkin made it clear from the get-go that he wasn't taking any prisoners. Before bringing Blair on, he insisted that she and her mother read William Blatty's novel, from which the movie was adapted. Stinky, smelly, thick, gooey. The director didn't seem to care that Blair was so young. One of his first decisions was to use Blair's stunt double, Eileen Dietz, as little as possible. He only hired her because the studio forced him to. Friedkin came to me before we were filming and said, "If you do not do all of this film, the film will be a joke," Blair recalled. The pressure was on. In the end, Dietz was on screen for about 17 seconds. Blair explained, and they are 2 of the vomit scenes. I had really had enough of the vomit. I was warm, stinky, smelly, thick, gooey. The harness gave her scoliosis. The vomit was one thing Blair said nearly pushed her over the edge. Then there was the harness that had to be strapped to during the bed scene, which would repeatedly bang her spine. At one point when the bed was levitating, a technical failure fractured her back. The onset injury developed into a serious diagnosis of scoliosis, leaving her in chronic pain. The back injury was far more serious than I ever imagined and really affected my health negatively for a long time, she said, adding that she had a lot of difficulty living with the aftermath of The Exorcist. Blasphemy. The true horror came after the shooting wrapped. You might remember, or have heard, that the movie had a visceral effect on moviegoers. Some even passed out from sheer shock. There were offended Christians, ones who called blasphemy, who took their anger out on Blair rather than the screenwriter or the director. The movie was released in New York City, and Blair was sitting in the audience. When the movie ended, Blair had a gut feeling that her life was going to change. She just didn't know it would take such a turn for the worst. The life-threatening aftermath. Religious zealots were sending Blair death threats. People would follow her on the streets and scream obscenities at her. The actress, barely a teenager, was suddenly thrust into a media frenzy and confronted with questions about the subtext of a movie she wasn't even legally old enough to watch. They thought I had all the answers about faith and Catholicism. They'd put me on planes for these ridiculously long transatlantic flights, and then I'd be thrust in front of hundreds of people I often couldn't understand who were putting their faith into my hands. It was horrible. The troubled teen. The silver lining came in form of awards. She won a Golden Globe and was nominated for an Oscar for her role in The Exorcist. But she couldn't escape the devil's shadow. The typecasting began. Still a teen, she was cast in an exploitive movie called Born Innocent, famous for its lesbian rape scene. Establishing herself as the most troubled child in film history, Blair was consistently cast as a troubled teen, an addict and a victim of abuse. Then came 1977's Exorcist II, The Heretic. She was 18 when The Exorcist II came out. Born Innocent to Playboy. There was also Sarah T., Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic. Blair was not happy with the movie she was being offered. Come 1982, in a desperate attempt to reinvent herself, she posed for Playboy. Many women don't come back from Playboy. Blair's brief, topless detour backfired on her. She was condemned for a decade of campy horror flicks and even acted in the parody of The Exorcist, Repossessed, opposite Leslie Nielsen in 1990. Her last, somewhat famous role was an uncredited cameo in Scream. 18 and arrested for drugs. After The Exorcist II, Blair took a brief hiatus from the industry to get back to horseback riding. When she returned to the world of acting, the movie roles were few and far between. It didn't help that she was acting like a teen delinquent. In 1977, approaching her 19th birthday, she was arrested. She was charged with possession of a Class A drugs and conspiracy to sell drugs. She pled guilty to a lesser charge of conspiracy to possess cocaine, leaving her with 3 years probation plus community service. If the arrest wasn't embarrassing enough, the judge ordered her to make at least 12 major public announcements in which she would tell young people about the dangers of drug abuse. If the arrest wasn't embarrassing enough, the whole world had to find out about it too. From 1979 onwards, Blair was seen in low-budget and drive-in type movies, like Roller Boogie, Hell Night, and Chained Heat. This new chapter in her career, along with her Playboy photo shoots, won her a new audience of thrill-seeking male fans. She won the Loser Awards. The early 80s saw introduced her to 5 Golden Raspberry Award nominations, winning 2 of them. In 1985, she earned a Worst Actress Award for all 3 of her films released that year. Eventually, Blair made it out of the weeds and started her later career in animal rights activism. But the in-between years were filled with trashy movies and musicians. There was a period when Blair dove into the arms of men in the music industry, becoming a muse for none other than Rick James, among others. Her rock star streak started at 15. Blair was 15 when she started dating Australian singer Rick Springfield, who was 25 years old at the time. Yes, it's very creepy. The two met at a concert at LA's Whiskey A Go-Go. Blair also dated Deep Purple bassist Glenn Hughes and Styx guitarist Tommy Shaw. Then there was a relationship with Jim Dandy Mangrum of Black Oats, Arkansas, and later on she dated actor Wings Hauser. But Blair's most talked about relationship has to be the one with funk rocker Rick James. According to the late musician, Linda Blair broke his heart. Wee wee. Years after Blair and Springfield split, she had her eyes on Rick James. In a 1982 interview with We magazine, printed with a topless picture of her, Blair revealed that she found James very sexy. James was then shown the page from the magazine by someone in his entourage. The rock star decided to return the compliment through a third party. They first chatted on the phone and then met up in New York. Soon enough, the two were an item, and it lasted for about 2 years. It left him with a broken heart. Topless free spirits. James, who died in 2004, wrote about many women in his memoir, Glow, the autobiography of Rick James. Among the women listed, Elizabeth Shue, Ola Ray, Janice Hunter, and Tina Marie was Blair. Linda was incredible, a free spirit, a beautiful mind, a mind-blowing body, he wrote. Thanks to James' candid memoir, we know that he and Blair dabbled in drugs together. No kidding, she was a known addict. We posed topless for a photograph that showed up everywhere. We didn't care, he shared. Cold-Blooded was about her. He continued, we were doing our own thing in our own way. It was a love affair that I hoped would last, but it didn't. James ended up writing his hit single Cold-Blooded about Blair. He dropped a bomb when he revealed that he discovered he had impregnated Blair and that she had an abortion without telling him. He said the song was purely about his steamy affair with Linda Blair. In 1983, Cold-Blooded hit #1 on Billboard's R&B charts. When I called my album Cold-Blooded, I wasn't talking about my personality. Apparently, she could freeze his blood. I didn't see myself that way. I was warm-blooded. I was a guy who needed other people. I also needed other people to need me, James wrote. He continued to explain, it was about how Linda could freeze my blood. He mentioned the secret abortion and how she later told him that it was his child, but she gave me no voice in her decision. I call that cold-blooded, James said. The book, by the way, came out the year after James passed away. She couldn't handle his lifestyle. In 1998, Blair appeared in James' Behind the Music documentary for VH1. Blair actually felt as though Cold-Blooded was a compliment to her. That was very nice that he wrote that about me. I don't see it, but okay. During the VH1 special, James mentioned that he wished he could have married Blair at one point. His lifestyle, aka the drugs, however, was just too much for her. I couldn't bear to be around that, Blair shared. She broke his heart. It wasn't healthy for me, and it wasn't healthy for him by any means, and so I chose after a while to walk away, said Blair. James explained just how much she broke his heart. She was in the middle of shooting a movie and was starting to show, and she didn't think I'd care anyway. He added, she was wrong. I did care deeply. I still look back on her choice with sadness and wonder about our baby, and how having that child might have changed my life. When Linda first met Rick. Let's dive a little deeper into her young romance with Rick Springfield. They started dating after The Exorcist already came out. She later revealed that Springfield was her first. It was 1974 and Blair went to see a show at the Whiskey A Go-Go. At the time, Springfield thought Blair was the hottest young actress in movies. He wrote about it in his memoir, Late at Night. She invited me to the Rainbow Club up the street after I'm done with my last set, and she says she and her sister Debbie will buy me a drink. He taught her, everything. He claimed that he didn't know how old she was, but he soon learned that she was only 15. Again, he was 25 at the time. That night, after drinks at the club, Blair went back with him to his apartment, most specifically my bed, he wrote. I am her first lover, and she is an enthusiastic learner. We share a love of dogs and sex, separately, not in combination. He wrote of their relationship. Most of the time, we don't leave the apartment. He was broke at the time, but Blair didn't care. Blindly and innocently, or really quiet. Springfield and Blair apparently weren't on the same page when it came to how they saw their relationship. In his memoir, he said they were going out in public as a couple, blindly and innocently to the media slaughter. According to Springfield, the media shocked them both when incensed articles in both teen and regular press about their affair were published. Blair, on the other hand, insisted that she and Springfield were really quiet about it. We did try to keep it all very sacred, and I think we did a good job because it's something that really didn't even hit the headlines. The whole age difference thing. Blair explained that the only reason they didn't stay together was that they were in the industry, saying it was difficult under the limelight. There's a lot of scrutiny. Of course, there was the whole age difference thing that always throws people off. Springfield recalls being pilloried for the whole age difference thing. Regardless of it all, and considering how long ago this was, The two have nothing but positive and good memories, at least according to Blair. They're still friends to this day. Reuniting for the animals. In fact, their friendship continued over the years thanks to their love of animals. Both are advocates for animal welfare organizations, including Blair's World Heart Foundation. Her foundation seeks to alleviate suffering while rescuing, rehabilitating, and rehoming abused, neglected, and abandoned animals. In 2020, Springfield and Blair reunited for the foundation's merchandise. Every purchase proceeds go directly into rescuing, feeding, sheltering, and vet care for the deserving animals. Blair's fling with Deep Purple's Glenn Hughes. Deep Purple's bassist from 1973 to 1976 was Glenn Hughes, and in an interview with Classic Rock magazine, he shed some light on his long-ago affair with Blair. It was back in the 70s when she was filming the second Exorcist film. They'd met through Hughes' ex-bandmate, guitarist Tommy Bolin, who had his own fling with the actress. Just before a trapeze gig in St. Louis, I got a call from Tommy and he put me on the phone to Linda. She told me she was a big Purple fan, he recalled. Nope. Just a horse lover. At the time, Blair was about to fly to New York to shoot Exorcist 2: The Heretic, but she wanted to make a detour and stop over in St. Louis and see Trapeze. So she turned up at my front door the next morning carrying an overnight bag and a saddle, Hughes recalled. It's not every day you show up to your crush's house with a saddle. He said he thought to himself, is this some bizarre sexual fetish? No, it turned out that she was a keen horsewoman. The two became fast lovers, but her addiction got to be too much for him. He said she did way too much blow. I was going completely off the rails, and I'd found the perfect mate to stumble along with, Hughes exposed. He then said it's incredible, but he broke up with her because she was doing too much blow. Hughes claimed it was getting to be too intense for him. We'd be driving down Sunset Boulevard, she'd have an ounce of cocaine in the bag on her lap, and she'd be doing bumps through a straw. He was worried the cops would catch him. A few weeks after we broke up, she got busted. If I'd been busted with her, my life and career in America would have been over. A nightgown in Sub-Zero. The Exorcist was a huge success, and to this day it sits as the second highest earning R-rated horror film of all time. We now know that the conditions on the set were gruesome, particularly for Blair. In addition to what we already mentioned, there were the extremely cold temperatures on set. During the actual exorcism scenes, Blair had to wear only a nightgown, but the temperature on the set would often drop below zero. According to Blair, it was because of the air conditioning units they used to achieve the visibly cold breath. Hours of burning makeup. While the crews were wearing protective gear against the cold, Blair was simply freezing. Then there was the daunting daily makeup routine. Each day, she sat for 2 hours in the makeup chair, but sometimes it would reach up to 5 hours. Blair explained that the glue that held the prosthetics together burned her face. Blair probably faced the brunt of the production's dangerous procedures, but there were other things that happened that led people to say the set was cursed, like the multiple deaths, for example. They even tried to exorcise the set. The Exorcist saw a long list of tragedies and deaths related to the production. After several disasters on the set, a priest was actually called upon to exorcise the set. Even weirder was the electrical fire that burned the set down. Strangely, the fire was started when a pigeon flew into the light box during the infamous exorcism scene. Due to the freak fire, the film was put on hold for 6 weeks as the set had to be rebuilt. According to Friedkin, it made him question whether the film was seriously cursed. Then people started dropping like flies. The fire was one thing, then people started dying. Jack McGowan, who played Burke Dennings, died suddenly after getting sick with the flu. Vasiliki Maliaros, the actress who played Father Karras' mother, also died before the film came out. The creepiest thing about both of their deaths is that both of their characters die in The Exorcist. If those deaths weren't bad enough, there was the death in Blair's own family of her grandfather, which also happened during filming. A total of 9 people related to the production reportedly died during the making of the film. Her religion helped her. For Blair, the story of The Exorcist was fictional. Because she wasn't raised Catholic, Blair said she was able to be part of the film and not be fearful of the subject. The Exorcist was a work of fiction. I didn't realize that it dealt with anything in reality. For many viewers, though, the idea of possession and the devil were horrifying concepts rooted in reality. During the post-film press, Blair found herself in an uncomfortable spot. "The amount of pressure that came down on me wasn't anything I was prepared for," she said. The police lived at her house. She recalled how they thought I had all the answers about faith and Catholicism. "It was probably the most awful thing you could imagine. What made all those interviews worse was that they were often held with hundreds of people in the press room rather than being conducted one-on-one." As for all the death threats she received after the film was released, Blair said she was shocked but thankfully well protected. "The police were hired to live at my house," she recalled. "When she was walking down the street, though, and people would heckle her, she was on her own." Is Linda Blair a lesbian? It seems as though the only reason this question has been raised is because Blair has never been married or had kids. Although she's had her share of relationships, all with men, she never settled down and started a family. Does that mean she's gay? Obviously not. Nevertheless, it's a question that fans have asked her over the years. At age 63, it looks like children are out of the question. But who knows? Maybe she's enjoying an under-the-radar relationship. Linda Blair's net worth. Blair started her own clothing line, Linda Blair's Wild West collection. Aside from being an actress, she's also a businesswoman and philanthropist. As of 2021, she has an estimated net worth of $20 million. She also hosted the TV series Scariest Places on Earth for 6 years in the 2000s, which adds to her worth. She spends her free time as an animal rights advocate. She supports PETA, the children's charity, and Feed the Children, as well as her own organization.